Welcome everybody to the Haunt Department of Life Intrigue. We're going to bring you another video of a behind the scenes look at one of the props that we use on our haunted trail. Now Freddy was actually created a few years back in the heart of COVID, and the concept then was try to find something that crossed Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, the third one, with those syringe hands, and put in a little Tommy Acid Queen concept in his place. So what we did is we created these, which we call the Freddy Krueger Syringe Hands. We put on our Freddy Krueger posy here. Now, first year worked great. Second year, some of the fluids started developing a little bit of molding, which actually looked pretty cool. Looked even more scary with that bacteria in the syringes as well. Third year, that mold started dominating the actual fluid, looked really gross. So we decided to change them out, and we actually learned a few things that we didn't think about, and that's being able to change this fluid every year. We have redesigned it. It allows us to change that fluid, so we thought while we're doing that and updating these syringe hands, we'd take you through and show you how we created those, in case this is something you wanted to add to your own props as well. Now, we put them on our Freddy posy here. So it has a frame inside the hand, a PVC frame. Now, if you wanted to use this, if you had scare actors or something, just wanted to wear them, you could actually leave the frame off and just put your hands in there and keep them. Now, keep away from the guests because you don't want them to poke on these needles and that. But either way, a number of different options. So we'll take you through how we built this. Hope you enjoy. Before we get too far into this project, I wanted to get something started we're going to have to use in a later step. And that's to put these highlight markers and basically submerge them in water. Peel it out here. And I'm also going to take out the element, the tip. Stick that in there. Do it for the next marker. It's kind of messy. These are just highlight markers we had laying around the house with different colors, green, orange, pink. Get this one in here. Ooh. A little shake. And then the last one here, which is blue. Give that a shake. And we're just going to clean up a little bit and set this off to the side, and we'll get back to it real quick. I'm finding when I go through these tutorials, I'm either glossing over or going too fast the actual dimensions that are involved in the building of the prop. So I thought I'd step back, just walk you through those specific dimensions that we're using for Freddy's needle hands. This is the picture of the left hand. So the first thing we need to do is put those end caps, those CPVC caps, 1/2 inch, on the 1-inch T connector. And those just line up perfectly across the top of that T connector. Those are attached to the T-connector with 1-inch bolt, a split washer, and a lock nut. Then we put the thumb on. That is a 4.5-inch pipe, and that's connected with a 1 1/4 inch bolt, split washer, and a lock nut as well. These are number 1032 hardware, by the way. So that just attaches to the middle of the T-connector, and I put that roughly 5/8 of an inch off the end of the pipe. Again, that is centered on the T-connector, and it's 4.5 inches long. The fingers, the dimensions of those, 5 inches, 5.5 inches, 4 7/8 inches, and 4 inches for the actual pinky. You then put connectors on the end of those. On the thumb, I put a 90 degree. On the index, I put a 45 degree, a 45 on the middle, a 90 degree on the ring finger, and a 90 degree connector on the pinky. You have some flexibility here. It depends on what you want that shape of that hand to look like when you're done. And these connectors then will provide that flexibility. So you can change these out, put 90s, put 45s, or whatever you want on those. Then there is some extra pipe that just is think of it as the fingertips as it moves into the end of the connector where the syringe is going to be. And that's 1 1/8 inch, 1 3/8 inch, 1 3/4 inch, and 1 1/8 inch. And then the thumb up here is 1 1/8 inch. Now those just go right into the connector, and then those will go into the CPVC caps that are inside the finger and that attach to the syringes on the outside of the glove. Again, there's those caps on the end of each of those extensions. The fingers of the glove are identified by these hash marks that make the finger. Just showed it on one here. And that goes between the last end cap on the CPVC side and the flat piece of plastic there that we use for the thumb or the finger holders for the syringe, and then attaches to the 1/2 inch threaded standard PVC pipe. But I'll go through that in detail now as we build out the actual syringe. We used 1/8 inch galvanized wire for the actual needle of the syringe. I made that 5 to 6 inches long, and that's so I could fold it over and make that little loop and still have about 3.5 inches sticking out of the end of that barb. I show that loop in the video, so you'll see where that comes into play. It's not drawn here. Then go into the nylon hose barb, which is this piece of plastic right here. Has a 1/2 inch ID on the bottom here and a 3/8 inch ID here on the upper portion of that. The tubing comes next. This is the clear tubing, 1/2 inch ID, 5/8 inch OD. On the thumbs, I made them about 3.5 inches long. And for the fingers, I made each one 4.5 inches long. And that's the length of the clear tubing from that barb right here to the barb on the other end. So that gives me that distance that's going to hold the fluid for the syringe. Next is another nylon hose barb. This is the 1/2 inch ID by the 1/2 inch MIP, basically threaded into that. That inserts into the end of the tubing. And then the 1/2 inch threaded PVC cap, just your standard white PVC cap, but it needs to be threaded so you can screw in the syringe on the end of those fingers. There's that plastic plate. It's just a real thin 2mm piece of plastic. I 3D printed those, but you could actually use a poker chip if you just want to put a hole in the middle and slice off the edges just to give it a little more dimension. From there, we have the glove, and then that whole assembly at the bottom is attached to the 1/2 inch CPVC cap inside the glove with a 3/4 inch bolt and lock nut. So hopefully this gives you a much better visual of the dimensions for the left hand of Freddy Krueger's syringe hand. The right hand is very similar. I just rotate the thumb PVC pipe to the other side, reverse the order of the finger dimensions, and then switch connectors. From thumb to pinky, I used a 45-degree connector, a 90, two more 45s, and then a 90. So just gives it a different look between the two hands so they don't look like they were just mirrored on there. Gives a little more character. I will provide the parts list in the description so you can download it and view it at your leisure. So hopefully that helps give more clarity as I go through the rest of the tutorial now. Now with all that cleaned up, we're going to get to the heart of the hand creation here. Now in this, we're going to use the CPVC pipe. I believe it's chlorinated PVC pipe, if I'm not mistaken. Just for some, it's hard to say CPVC. I'm just going to say PVC pipe from now on. Just a note that when we send our staff out to get pipe, it's either beige pipe, white pipe, or if it's need conduit, we get the gray pipe. So make it very simple. Okay, to start with, we're going to need 18 of the pipe end caps, the 1/2-inch CPVC caps. You need to take each of those and drill a hole right through the middle of that to accommodate a number 10 screw or bolt or whatever you happen to be using to put these together. We recommend a 1-inch number 10 bolt. So if you take that, again, you drilled a hole right through the center of that. You'll need to attach that to the 1-inch T connector. Take your bolt, your split washer, go ahead and put that down through the open end of the cap. And then you'll stick that right on to the end of the top of the T connector. And then of course you'll connect it with a lock nut so it doesn't come off. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see those bolts coming through there, and I've screwed those together. Now you'll want to start with the inside one and out, just to make it easier for you to get a pliers onto that lock nut and be able to tighten it. At the same time, you need to put the thumb on. Now I've already cut the thumb PVC pipe, and that's 4.5 inches. And again, I connected it with a number 10 bolt with a split washer right through the middle of the T connector. And this, I believe, is a 1.25 inch bolt, just because it's got to go through that extra pipe dimensions. And again, fixed it with a lock washer. So that's pretty much the palm or the base of the hand that we're going to use. Show you that. And note that these caps line up perfectly, just about the exact length, so they'll go on evenly across that top of the T connector. Okay. Next thing we'll do is we're going to cut the links for the fingers in the CPVC pipe. And I've got each of those already cut for you, again, based on the dimensions in that PowerPoint I went through. Now I'm going to put connectors on the end of each one that match how I want my finger positions to be. Now again, you have complete flexibility and creativity to how you make those connections. I'm going to use the ones that were outlined in that PowerPoint. So I'm basically going to take those connectors, again, right, put those on here. Middle finger gets a 45. Ring finger gets a 45. And the pinky finger gets a 90 degree. And also while I'm at it, I went ahead and cut these little extender pieces that will go into the actual tips of the fingers and hold the syringes. So again, those dimensions are in the PowerPoint, but I've already cut those for convenience. And of course we have the thumb connector. That pipe is already on the palm. So I'm just going to attach that there. And now I'm going to attach each of these fingers just to show you what it looks like when it's all together. At least the part that goes inside the glove. Yeah. And there you have Freddy's syringe hand, at least the structure inside the glove. So next thing we're going to do is going to work on the glove itself. So let me grab that. I used some RW gloves that I found at Menards. They're like $9 or something. I know Freddy's gloves are actually leather, but I needed to have a lot of flexibility to get these PVC pipes in and connected. So I was looking for something a little less stiff than the leather ones. And I came back and I found these. They were bright yellow. So I did spray paint them with Krylon paint. Now I happen to really like the Krylon Fusion paint, and specifically when it comes to brown, I prefer the matte coffee bean. We use it all the time in all of our props. It's probably the most common spray paint that we use in any of our projects. So I really like that. All I did was spray paint it all. And at the time when we first did this, it was tighter together so you couldn't see those yellow pieces. But anyway, main thing is to get them colored brown to make them more look like the leather gloves that Freddy would wear. So with that, the thing is to put and start building the caps that go inside the fingertips that'll both hold the fingers inside as well as the syringes outside. So let me get some stuff to show you how we built that together. And now I have everything together. Start showing you how we built this. Now the thing is, the syringes are going to come out the top. We want those to be affixed. And inside, we're going to put another 1/2-inch cap. And that's going to hold, or the fingers are going to insert into that. And that's how we're going to keep them together inside. And then what we're going to have is we've just got, we 3D printed these small plastic flat pieces. I think it's like 2 millimeters by 1 inch long. Again, with a hole in the center. Now, you don't really need to have a 3D print for this. I'll try to put the model inside the links down below in the description. But it's just as easy to take a white poker chip, put a hole through the center of it, and then snip off the edges so it looks like the finger holders for a syringe. So if I just put this together, it's going to be the cap, the glove, then the piece of flat plastic, and then the 1/2-inch PVC threaded end cap on the top. And then that's going to eventually hold the syringes. So I'm going to put that together real quick. At least one. I'm going to start by taking the 1/2-inch PVC end cap. Again, that's threaded. Put my 3/4-inch bolt, number 10 again, through the top. Put in my plastic flat piece there. I'm just going to do the pinky first. Put that up there. Put that down into it so it sits on top. And then I'm going to put a locking nut underneath it. Now the easiest thing is if you have a single socket, I usually put one in there and then a second one. That nice and tight. And then you can see that it's going to fit nicely right on the top here and hold it nice and snug. I'm going to go ahead and quickly do that for the other 4 here. And there we have all the fingertips for the syringes connected to the glove. That's probably going to be the most difficult part of this whole project. Just being sure to get that screw in there tight and getting that lock nut on the bottom. But we made it through. Now that's the other things. We don't have paid scare actors, but I could easily see them using the syringes and using this to glove just manually. And now we're going to put it on the end of our props, so this is why we needed this frame structure here. But it's pretty handy as well.
Warriors, come up to play!
Just to be used as a scare person's glove if they're doing some kind of Freddy motif. Now that we got the fingers on, at least the fingertips for the syringes, let's go ahead and put the structure in. That will keep the hand. And again, those are going to go right on the end of Freddy's arms here. The best thing to do here is to take the fingers off. And put those in first. So I'll start with the pinky finger. Again, you're going to put that cap that you just screwed into the tip of the glove into this finger extender here. And this is where the flexibility of the glove comes in handy, because you need to get that connector, in this case, through there and connect it on to that end cap. Press it in there nice and tight. Next finger. It's a little easier because it has a 45-degree angle on it. Press it on there tight. Next finger, again with a 45 connector on it. Set it on top of that cap. And then the index finger, now this has the 90 on it again, so it's going to be a little harder. And now we have the 4 fingers on there. You can see it's much stiffer now, starting to take that shape of that form that we want that hand to have. And now, to put the thumb in, it is connected to the T connector as mentioned before. Just gonna put that through there. It's probably best before I start this, just to fold this hand up a little bit, the glove, just to make it easier to get the thumb in there. That through there. And just like the fingers, it'll connect on to the pipe. Okay. Now the fingers aren't connected to the base yet, but you can see how everything's together there. So now we're just going to take those ends, maybe rolled up a little more here so I can see those. I'm going to just take those ends and connect them to the end caps that have been screwed onto the T connector. Put them on loose until you get all the ones in the, at least started in the end caps. And push each of those down. Move the fingers here just a little bit into the shapes that I want them. Spread these out just a little bit. There you have it. Freddy's right hand in the shapes that I want. And you can adjust these however you want. And you have complete flexibility to change those connectors at the end so you have a different shape as you want. And if I match that up with this left hand, we now have both hands, or at least the frames of the hands for Freddy. Next up is the syringes that we're going to screw into these. Now to put the syringes together. We're going to use 2 hose barbs. First of these is the nylon hose barb. It's Menards part PL427. But essentially it's a 1/2 ID and a 3/8 ID for the top here. And basically the concept is that would look like the needle as it tapers into the needle. And then this side would go into the syringe side or the tubing. So we're going to take that. We've got 1/8 inch galvanized wire. All I've done is cut that at 5 inches, and then I bend over the end of that for about 1/2 inch each. So that takes up about a full inch through the end there. And then we're going to drop that down into the wider part. And it'll come out the thinner part to form the needle of the syringe. And the reason of that hook is I didn't want it falling out until I got all the glue and everything put in that. So we're going to put hot glue into this and fill it up completely. So that's nice and sturdy in there. It's probably nice to take some glue here and wrap it around the end here just to give it a nice taper into the needle. So that's the tip of the syringe. Put that down here for just a second. The other hose barb we're going to use is this threaded one. Again, Menards Sioux Chief PL443, I believe. And basically this is a 1/2 inch ID and a 1/2 inch MIP, which is the screw section here. So this is going to be the base of the syringe. Now this part is going to screw in to the base that we just put on the glove. And between this, we're going to put tubing, which will hold our fluid that we're going to use inside the syringe. And I've got one made here. And the dimensions of this tube, again, are in the PowerPoint I mentioned before. But basically, a 1/2 inch ID tubing goes on one end of the barb and attaches the other. And then this will eventually be screwed in to form the syringe fingers for Freddy. Of course, we need to make 10 of those. For simplicity, I'm just working on one here. Just replicate that for the other fingers. Words of wisdom about the first time we made this. Now, we're about on our 3rd iteration of these. So when we first made these, we slapped the barbs on. It was open there, filled it up with fluid. And then I didn't want any of the fluid coming out, so I thought it'd be smart to put a washer and a screw down in there to cover the hole. And then I put glue around that to seal it in real nice. That way the fluid would stay in there, it wouldn't seep out, and be fine. We needed to be able to get that material out, at least that fluid out, and change it with some new ones. So what we did, we couldn't drill through here because we put that metal washer in. So the only option we had was to cut the tubing, go get new tubing, and build it all back again. But that wasn't going to work in the long term because I didn't want to keep doing that every year, every 2 years. Plus, we kind of wanted the fluid out there in storage. We didn't want it leaking in our bins and that. So what we do now is we fill this entire thing with glue. This whole barb here is filled with hot glue, and you can kind of see that it's solid. And what we do is we come back, we drill a hole right through the middle of that when we want to change out the fluid or get it out. So we drill a small hole right through the glue all the way into the tubing that allows us to get that actual fluid out. Then we can put the new fluid in using this. I got these little wisdom teeth syringes just to make it easier. So we can pull that fluid out, fill it up, put that in the hole, and actually fill in the fluid there through the glue. And then once we've got the fluid where we need it, we'll come back and just put a little bit of glue just to close up where we drilled that hole. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So now let's start that process. Save time off camera, I went ahead and made all the syringes for Freddy's fingers, all 10 of them. Just take one here just to recap. We have 1/8 inch galvanized wire to use as the actual needle part of the syringe, the hose barb, the tubing which will hold the fluid, and another barb on top. Now, as I mentioned, we put in hot glue to fill this up all the way to the end. I have already drilled a hole right through the middle of that. So we're just going to take our waters that we've had our ink filter sitting here since the beginning of the video. And you can see that those have nicely drained out into the water. And pink, blue, green, orange, you can use any colors you want. You can also use yellow, which I didn't use here because I use Mr. Clean for that. And the reason that we do this is because these fluids are UV reactive, which means they'll glow at night when we put the UV light on them. So I'm just going to take this orange one here, put my syringe down there, fill that up. Put this down in the hole. A little messy than expected. And there you have it. One filled syringe with UV reactive fluid. Now what we're going to do now is cover that hole in, cover that back up with hot glue. Dry a bit. You want to keep the glue off the threads so you don't have problems screwing it back into the top. Let that dry a little bit. This is what this foam piece is for. Just going to set it right there while it dries. Didn't mention it, these are just wisdom teeth syringes I got off of Amazon. They're like $1 a piece. Just makes it easier to get it in the top, although it was still a little messy. But trying to pour that into that little hole was nearly impossible before. So we went and picked up these syringes, which look pretty nice, super cheap. Just allows us then to get the tip into the glue and squeeze it in. Hopefully you'll be a little less messy than I was. It's a good time to point out for a safety perspective, you definitely want to smooth over that end of that wire. This could be a little dangerous, especially depending on how you cut it. I used a hacksaw, which left it pretty rough and pretty sharp. So I didn't want any of our guests to get hurt or get too close to the prop and get one of these and do some damage to them. So these have been filed over really nice and smooth. And definitely if you're using scare actors and using these gloves where you're getting closer to people, where you don't know, can't predict where they're going to go, you definitely want to have those as smooth as possible so they don't harm anybody and probably keep them further away from your guests. So just a mental note, I should have mentioned this when I was first showing it, that we do want to make that as smooth as possible just so we don't hurt anybody. See how we're doing. Looks pretty good. And none's coming out, so we have success. So what we'll do is we'll fill up each of these syringes with a different color, just to vary it up a little bit. And then we'll glue those into the, I'm sorry, not glue, we'll screw those into those fingertips that we created. Nice and tight. Okay. There you have it. Just do one here for right now. We'll put all the other ones together off camera. But you can see that's basically the concept, which is Freddy Krueger with some acid queen thrown in. So, and then those will go, take off here, right on the PVC frame for Freddy Krueger. Okay. So I'll go ahead and finish out all of the other needles, put it all together, show you the finished product. And we're back. I figured you didn't want to watch me fill all these syringes, but I did learn, not so much learn, but remembered something, and that was my fluid dynamic days, and that's displacement. I had created a single hole through here, and that's what I was filling them through. And if you notice, I had some problems filling that first one that was coming out the top. Well, the air needs to go somewhere as it's displaced, and I had that syringe too deep into the hole, closing off that air escaping. So basically, it was just coming out all over. So once I remembered that, pulled that syringe a little bit out of that hole, I was able to fill them much faster. But they're all filled, different colors. And again, I came back once they were filled, put that hot glue on it just to seal them off then, so fluid won't escape. So now it's just a matter of screwing these in to the fingers. Do that. If there's some movement on these caps here that you're screwing into, you may have to go back and screw those in tighter so they don't move. Be very careful of your eyes with these points. Don't want to poke any eyes out. Green one on here. It's important you keep that hot glue out of the, oops, there's a little bit there. I think I lost a little bit of fluid there. I need to go back and put some more glue on that just to seal that up, but I'll continue on here just for the video. And the thumbs are shorter, as I showed in the PowerPoint, just to get them the relationship correct. So there's that. Looks like this finger has come off a little bit as well. Put that back on there. There we go. That's one done. Again, I got a little bit leaking from this one. I'll fix that. Now for this one. Doing this to point out, again, for yellow, I did use Mr. Clean. I find that is the best yellow that's reactive to UV light. Works really well. Don't have to do any mixing. Does smell a little bit, so the lab right now smells like Mr. Clean. Put the last one on here. And there you have it. The right hand and the left hand. Freddy Krueger Syringe Hands. I'll go ahead and put those on so you get a feel for it. And there you have it. Hope you enjoyed seeing how we put Freddy's syringe hands together. He needs a lot more work before he's ready for the trail, but hopefully we'll get that all done before this year's haunted trail. Before we let you go, we thought we'd show you what it was like all together up close, and then we'll go ahead and hit it with our UV lights. You can see that those highlighters really reacting to the UV light. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Please leave comments and let us know what you think. Take care, everybody. Stay calm. Haunt on.